The clock that stops time. James inherited an old clock from his grandfather, who gave him a warning before passing away: never press the red button on the clock. Despite the warning, James was curious about what would happen if he pressed it. One day, while alone at home, he decided to test it out. When he pressed the red button, everything around him stopped: people on the street, cars, even the air seemed frozen. James was shocked and realized he could move freely in a world where time had come to a standstill. But when he tried to return time to normal, he found that the red button no longer worked, and no one else moved in the world. James kept trying to press the red button again, but it was useless. Everything around him remained frozen, and nothing changed despite his efforts. He tried walking through the street to find someone who could help, but discovered that time had stopped for everyone. He screamed, shook people, but no one responded. After hours of fruitless attempts, James realized he was the only one who could move but was trapped in a stagnant world. He wondered if this was the end or if there was some magical solution to return everything to how it was. Suddenly, the clock began to glow with a strange color, and a new button appeared that he had to decide whether to press. With no other options, James pressed the new button that had appeared on the clock. As soon as he did, the world around him transformed, and colors began to change, as if he had been transported to a different realm. Time began to move again, but everything was incredibly slow. People around James moved at a snail's pace, like they were in an extremely slow-motion video. He tried to scream, but his voice was as slow as their movements. At that moment, James realized he was not in his world anymore, but in something much larger and unfamiliar. Suddenly, the clock spoke with a mechanical voice: "Welcome to the world of extreme speed." James understood that this new button had transported him to a parallel dimension, and now he needed to find a way back to his own world before he was stuck forever. In the world of extreme speed, James began to notice that time was not only slow for him but also that the faster he tried to move, the faster he aged. People around him remained frozen, but time for him was passing at an alarming rate. His hair turned gray, and his face became wrinkled as he aged rapidly. Realizing that if he stayed in this world longer, he would eventually die of old age, James saw the clock in his hand glowing red and emitting a warning sound: return to the original world within 30 seconds. James had one last chance to press the right button at the right time to return. In the final second, James pressed the button, and suddenly found himself back in his original place. But something was different. The time in his real world seemed to be moving faster than normal, and everything around him had changed. James, after pressing the button at the last moment, found himself back in his original world, but everything was altered. Time moved faster, and everything around him looked different. He regained his senses and began to notice changes in his life. The people around him had changed, the streets were different. The newspaper that used to predict the future had become part of the past. James realized he had experienced something supernatural, but his real life had changed drastically. He decided to embrace this new opportunity and face the challenges and new opportunities that life now offered him.